Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm Rantoinette. Thanks so much for joining me. Happy holidays. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas. I'm sorry I've been kind of out of pocket for the last couple of days due to the holidays and work. I have not had a chance to be able to do this, and I'm really sorry about that. Also, I have been trying to do this story for the last week, and every time I do the story, I sit down in front of a computer, I sit down in front of the camera, I read this off. The next day, a new bunch of information comes out, and I just have to scrap the entirety of what I had already recorded. So, and spoiler alert, it's the Epstein stuff. We have so much to get through, and it's pages of this. I will try to get through it as efficiently and quickly as humanly possible. But before I do, if you guys wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, I would really appreciate that. It helps me out considerably, and it doesn't cost you anything. So let's get into this. Now, before I start, I just want to say that this is not just a story about preying on poor young girls, but this is also a story of class solidarity. We as Americans, right and left, we should have class solidarity about this. And I'll tell you why. Because the elite class definitely has class solidarity. A lot of this stuff is being redacted, is being held back. So much is being done to keep this out of the public eye because the elite class doesn't want that perfect little bubble that they lived in burst. They will do anything to stay on top and to make sure that you are treated like mushrooms, fed shit, and kept in the dark. It's not a right or left thing. This is a rich and everybody else thing. The wealthy elite Davos class against the rest of us. It is not the trans people. It's not the immigrants. It's not women's rights. It's not a black-white issue. It is a rich-poor issue. The problems with America are the wealthy elites robbing us fucking blind. And this right here, this is all about them. What they can get away with. People are only as moral as their options. The wealthier you are, the more options you have, the less morality plays into this. You are above the law. You are never held accountable, which means that you can do whatever you want to do. And if that means robbing us blind, abusing young children, making war in other countries over mineral rights, oil rights, you name it, morality never comes into question with the elites. We have a two-tier justice system. Anything that any of these elites have done, if we had done even a fraction of it, we would be under the jail. But they get away with it because they have money and they have power. And they will do anything to protect their own class. So I just wanted to preface this whole story with that. It's not just about child sex trafficking. This is about the elite class being able to do whatever the fuck they want to, and the rest of us have to sit here and fucking eat it. But I tell you what, all of this stuff is starting to come out, and honestly, I am glad to see that it's not just people on the left that are concerned about this. It's people in the center and people on the right. And it looks like all of us are fed up with the bullshit, and I'm really appreciative of that. So recently, there was the December 19th deadline to release the Epstein files. Thomas Massie, a Republican libertarian, and Ro Khanna, a progressive Democrat, teamed up to get this done. It was a hard-fought case trying to get these files to come out. Many victims have come forward. They stood at the Capitol steps a couple of times, but they managed to get enough votes to get this discharge petition happen. And then, of course, once the discharge petition was finally voted on, everybody fell in line. I believe it was 427 to 1. That one vote was Clay Aiken, a psychotic Republican who's basically doing the same thing that Donald Trump is doing, trying to protect the feelings of the elites. We can't have those people's names tarnished and dragged through the mud. That would be terrible. nevertheless, passed nearly unanimously through the House and unanimously through the Senate. So when it hits Donald Trump's desk, as much as he wants to veto this, he can't. He's kind of bullied into it. I don't know if you guys remember, it was back in August. Project Veritas did this kind of sting operation on somebody who works at the Department of Justice, where they sent in a young girl to go on a date with this DOJ guy who says that, oh yeah, we're scrubbing all of the Republicans' names from the files and Donald Trump's name from the files, and all we're going to leave is the Democrats and Bill Clinton. Well, here we are just a few months later here in December, and the files that they did release, which turned out to be only 1% of the files. Apparently there's 300 gigabytes worth of files that the DOJ says that they have, and only 2.5 gigs, so that's less than 1%, was released, and it was also heavily redacted. Not only did you not release all the files, you only released 1%, and that 1% was fucking redacted. Ro Khanna has been saying that they are not only violating the letter of the law, but they're also violating the spirit of the law. I don't know if Pam Bondi thought that Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna were serious, but they are obviously pretty serious, and they are threatening her with impeachment, but they're also threatening her with contempt of Congress, which can very well happen. And that means like fines of $5,000 a day for both her and Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General. We'll get to him in a minute, but there was a bunch of documents, like 16 documents, that had pictures of Donald Trump or mentions of Donald Trump that they released accidentally because this is so fucking, incompetency to the max. And then when it came out that there was like this whole desk drawer at Epstein's house with pictures of Donald Trump and a stack of documents. What are those documents? Who knows? But they haven't been released yet either. But that picture that went out along with like 15 other documents was redacted back. It was released and then pulled back. It's like, dude, the internet, it's already out there. There's nothing you can do. It's very old man kind of, you can't have that stuff out there. Pull it back real fast. It's like, dude, it's too late, man. It's already out there. Let's go through some of the pictures that had been released. There was a second picture of a picture frame. This was a photo that was framed of Epstein holding that infamous check for $22,000 for a fully depreciated girl. There was a bunch of pictures of Bill Clinton that were released with him and Epstein in silk shirts, and there was also a picture of Bill Clinton in a hot tub with Ghislaine Maxwell and somebody else. Turns out that that is not on the island. That is at some resort in Brunei, I believe. Whatever. But, I mean, obviously Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were friends, and Ghislaine Maxwell as well. I am not defending Bill Clinton whatsoever. He was absolutely involved, but, so was Donald Trump. And there are a lot more pictures of Donald Trump with Epstein than there are with Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein. There's also pictures of Bill Clinton with Kevin Spacey. Ugh, not a good look. Also with Chris Tucker, who apparently he frequented Jeffrey Epstein's Little St. James Island quite a few times. There was a picture of Michael Jackson, Bill Clinton, and Donna Summer. In this picture, there was a couple of young children with their faces blacked out. Turns out that those were Michael Jackson's kids, so it was a little bit misleading. Bill Clinton saw this, and he released a statement saying, hey man, I know I'm in these fucking files. Release them all. I see what you're doing, Donald Trump. I see that you're releasing only me and nothing to do with you. But dog, you were there as well. Release all the files. Come what may. I don't care if it takes me down. Stop fucking lying. This is not just about me. As much as I would rag on Bill Clinton about this, at least he did release that statement saying, hey, I ain't scared. Release all the fucking files. There was this picture that I saw. There was this fat, hairy dude on a cell phone, and then there's Jeffrey Epstein standing beside this girl like he is hand delivering this girl to him. I mean, who is this billionaire asshole elite motherfucker? It just looks really skeezy because it's obviously a young girl. You can't see her face, but Jeffrey Epstein is literally delivering this girl to him. He's like, hold on for a second. I'm on the phone. I'll deal with that young lady in a second. Then at the same time, when all of these redacted files are coming from the DOJ, the Democrat House Oversight Committee, they release a lot of pictures. And these are pretty nasty as well. There's pictures of young girls' body parts writing on her chest and one written down her back. And they're all passages from the book Lolita. It's basically a book on a grown-ass man dating a teenage girl. And in the background is the book Lolita, and it looks really well worn and thumbed through like he had read it 100 fucking times. There are pictures of all kinds of passports from Eastern Bloc girls. Their faces have been blocked out, but these are all passports that Jeffrey Epstein obviously procured to get some of these young girls and brought them in using these passports. There are pictures of Noam Chomsky, which, by the way, goddamn Noam, seriously, man. That is a huge fucking disappointment. Noam Chomsky. I don't know why he was there other than the obvious, but he was in some pictures. Woody Allen, that tracks. He was in the pictures. Bill Gates, many pictures. There is a reporter for the New York Times called David Brooks, and he had been poo-pooing the whole idea of releasing these Epstein files, saying, oh, this is just a big waste of time. Turns out he's in a bunch of pictures. There are pictures of Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and his brother were at this 2011 elite billionaires party that Epstein threw. When Elon Musk said that Donald Trump was in the Epstein files, I think he knew because he's in the fucking files. Epstein hooked up Elon Musk's brother with a girl, at least once that we know of. There are dozens of pictures of Steve Bannon, who happened to be at the end of Jeffrey Epstein's life, helping him out with political PR. There's no information about him being on the island or partaking in any of the young girl activity, but he certainly was kind of hooked in with Epstein. There are emails between the two of them about getting Epstein a job in Trump's first administration. This whole idea about Donald Trump cutting Jeffrey Epstein off back in 2003, 2004, that is absolute fucking horseshit. There were pictures of collages that Epstein made with pictures of young girls, and there's references to young girls and their little young girl panties and really disturbing stuff. He was not a good dude, man. There was a group of text messages between him and Harvey Weinstein. There is a picture of Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell. They are all dressed up like it's some kind of costume party, and I believe it was Prince Andrew's, one of Prince Andrew's birthdays. So they all kind of know each other and hung out with each other. Oh, by the way, there's a picture of this temple on the island. It's just sitting out there looking like a temple. And on the inside of it, it's got signs of the zodiac all over the inside walls of this temple. There's a lot of freaky shit going on here. There was a report that Jeffrey Epstein was checking the IDs of these young girls, except he wasn't checking to make sure that they were over 18. He was checking to make sure that they were under 18. Jeffrey Epstein literally bought books on how to enslave young girls on Amazon. There is literally a picture of a receipt that's in the Epstein file. There are pictures of the flight logs, and apparently Donald Trump had taken at least minimum 8 flights to the Epstein Island. 2 of those flights, Trump, his second wife, Marla Maples, their daughter, Tiffany Trump, and a au pair or a nanny went to the island 2 times, at least. What the fuck are we doing here? You're bringing your teenage girl to the teenage sex island? Which, by the way, there was an article in the New York Times not too long ago where a mother brought her young daughter to Mar-a-Lago because there was some kind of modeling thing going on, and Marla Maples went up to that mother and said, do not leave your daughter alone with Donald, or any other man at Mar-a-Lago. Oh God, there was this one here. In one of the files that was released, there was a police report that a young girl, her name is Maria Farmer, she was one of the first people to accuse Jeffrey Epstein. She went to the police about this back in 1996, where Jeffrey Epstein had taken physical pictures out of her home of her young sisters. She's like, give me my pictures back. And he's like, no, I'm not going to give you your pictures back. And if you go to the police about this, I'm going to burn down your house. And that particular file was released as well. Okay, y'all remember Jim Comey? He used to run the FBI. He was one of the first people that Donald Trump fired in his first term. I contend that it was because he's too tall and Donald Trump doesn't like anybody that's taller than him. He has a daughter named Maureen Comey, and she had been doing this investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's finances, which is a much bigger part of this story, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Maureen Comey was fired this year over the 2019 investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's files. And all of the files that she had collected in her investigation, they're all missing or they have been redacted. I'm not sure, but it definitely looks pretty hinky. Okay, so Todd Blanche went on Meet the Press, and she asked him about the meeting that he had with Ghislaine Maxwell, which preceded her being moved to Club Fed. And he just outright said, I'm not going to talk about that. Why not? You are the Deputy Attorney General. You are being asked a legitimate question. You can't say that this is due to national security. You're supposed to answer this fucking question. He insisted that he is trying to protect Ghislaine Maxwell due to her safety issues. Who gives a fuck about Ghislaine Maxwell's safety? She is a convicted child predator and child trafficker. And it looks like you're more concerned about her safety than the goddamn victims. So just a quick little summary here. Epstein dies in 2019 in federal custody under Donald Trump's first term. The DOJ closes the Epstein case under Donald Trump's second term, saying there's nothing to see here. Then Maxwell is moved to a Club Fed prison where she gets to do hot yoga and has a puppy. And then, of course, Mike Johnson shuts down the government early for summer break to stop the vote for the discharge petition. And then when they get back in session, Adelita Grijalva, she doesn't get seated for nearly 2 months because Mike Johnson is doing everything he can to make sure that this discharge petition does not go through. All of this at the behest of Donald Trump. There's nobody who's fighting harder to keep this out of the public eye than Donald Trump. Everybody else is just following his fucking orders. So Ro Khanna has been doing the news circuit. He's been giving all kinds of interviews. He is saying that they are going to try to pursue impeachment, but most likely they're going to go with contempt of Congress. And it seems like that threat has lit a fire underneath Bondi's ass, because all of a sudden, like the next day, 1 million files were quote unquote found at the Southern District of New York. I thought that there were no files. I thought there was nothing to see here. Why are we still talking about Epstein? You mean the financier? Why are we still talking about it? Maybe because there's millions of files hidden everywhere. Where aren't there fucking files? Seriously. And then, of course, now that the deadline is passed, get the whole Trump administration that same day, we're going to release the files in the next 2 weeks. What is this, Donald Trump's healthcare? You're going to get the best healthcare. Just wait in 2 weeks. It's going to be amazing. You're going to see all the files in 2 weeks. Trust me, bro. Trust me. There were some pictures inside of Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. They open up some drawers, and these drawers are jam-packed, full of DVDs and hard drives. And they had all been confiscated in 2019 when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. Where are those files? Where could they possibly be? I don't know. Moscow? Tel Aviv? Who knows? Jeffrey Epstein allegedly had cameras in all of the rooms in his mansion, filming all of these elites doing all of this nefarious shit with these young girls. There were probably thousands of people that had come in and out of that mansion that we're never going to know, because all of those hard drives and DVDs, they're all gone. We don't know where they are. Another one of the emails that came out was in 2011, and it was from Jeffrey Epstein saying that Trump was here for like 4 hours, locked in a room with a young girl. And then, of course, let's not forget that deposition video of Jeffrey Epstein where the interviewer asked Jeffrey Epstein, have you ever socialized with Donald Trump and any young girl under the age 18? And he took this long pause, and then he says, well, I would like to plead the Fifth Amendment, my Sixth Amendment rights, and my 14th Amendment right, because I don't think that you want to hear the real answer to that. Oh, honey, we all want to hear the real answer to that. Another one of the files that was released was a recounting of one of the victims who said that Jeffrey Epstein introduced her when she was 14 years old to Donald Trump and kind of nudged Donald Trump and said, this is one of the good ones, right? And Donald Trump just leered at her and said, oh yeah, 14 years old, man. These are twin fucking predators, man. And then, of course, that makes me think back to Donald Trump and his teen modeling agency. He had a teen modeling agency. He had the Miss Teen USA, where he bought it and then bragged on camera. If I want to go back there and look at them, they're running around here half naked. What are they going to say? I own the pageant. They can't say anything. He is literally bragging about looking at teenage girls running around a room half naked. Pedos of a feather flock together, I guess. And of course, all of this reminds me, Jeffrey Epstein, Jean-Luc Brunel, and that Casablancas guy, they were all in these little modeling agencies, which turns out is kind of a front for child trafficking. And every last one of those guys are dead, except for Donald Trump. He's the only one left standing. Okay, so back to the incompetency of the DOJ. The FBI working at the DOJ, they accidentally leaked Epstein files. It's just such a rookie mistake. They had released files in volumes 1 through 7, and then they got to volume 8 and it had not been released yet. But some enterprising reporters out there, like CoffeeZilla, they just changed the name of the file from volume 8 to volume 7, and then were able to click on it and open it. This is like full on incompetency, bro. It's insane. I expect more from my cover-ups, guys. Seriously. I mean, all they had to do was just move these files with all of the black bars across, just move them over into a Word document, and then the black bars disappear. And by the way, all of the defunding that Doge did, they weren't able to afford a newer version of Adobe Premiere, and that's the reason why they weren't able to block out these files any better, which I just think is absolutely hilarious. I think that was CoffeeZilla that said that. Okay, this is a big bombshell here. There was an investigation, a 2019 investigation, crimes against child human trafficking, and they found at least 10 co-conspirators in this whole Epstein cabal. And all of their names are blacked out. Yet again, that whole breaking the spirit of the law, you are not supposed to be blacking out those names because you're trying to protect them from some kind of embarrassment. In the Epstein Transparency Act, that is literally part of the law, but they managed to let out some of the names of the victims. So they're blacking out the names of the perpetrators, but not the victims. Literally the opposite of what you were supposed to be doing. The whole story this entire year has been, oh no, there are 1,200 plus victims out there, but Maxwell was only procuring them just for Jeffrey Epstein and nobody else. Sure, how about those 10 conspirators? Who are they? What are their names? How are they involved? Moving on, I've got a lot more here. There was that banger of a press conference that Donald Trump did a couple of days ago where he was talking about how they're going to take the oil from Venezuela and that they've got grand plans for Greenland. That's going to have to be a different story for a different time. But in that press conference, he just comes right up out of his face hole and is like, I really like Bill Clinton. He's a great guy, but he's a big boy. But honestly, there's so many other innocent victims out there where I would not want their names released. Bankers and lawyers, these are great guys. We can't have their names out there. He's literally saying it out loud. I'm here to protect the elite class. I do not give a shit about these young girls. I don't care. I'm sorry. But if you knew Jeffrey Epstein after 2008, after he'd already been convicted of pedophilia and being a child predator, you're still hanging out with him on his fucking island, I don't care if you kept your pants on or not. These guys were associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Whether they're co-conspirators or not, they were there. They do not get to have their names redacted to protect the fucking guilty. I mean, he literally thinks that these elite pedophiles are victims. And it still blows me away that Bill Clinton was like, hey, release the fucking files. Yet again, it reminds me of in that huge email dump that came out, there was an email of Jeffrey Epstein talking to somebody, but he said that Bill Clinton had never been on the island. But Donald Trump sure was, several times. But yet they still persist on releasing all of these redacted files and blacked out pages. All because Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and Kash Patel, they are all working in accordance to what Donald Trump wants. All of them might go under the bus, and I am absolutely down for them getting taken down for this. But they are all following Donald Trump's orders. Why in the fuck are we dealing with the Department of Podcasters in the first place? Because they are all showing fealty and loyalty to the president. I mean, fuck, Pam Bondi got her gig because she helped Donald Trump skate on the whole Trump University thing. She was the attorney general in Florida when that case came up, and she passed it by. And then, of course, she gets like, I don't know, something like $25,000 donation from Donald Trump to her reelection campaign. It's all so fucking incestuous. Okay, Ed Krasenstein, he did a little bit of an investigation, and he found there were several different trusts in the Epstein Foundation. One was called JSC and one was called Butterfly Trust. And they were run by this guy named Khan and this other guy named Indike. Indike did Butterfly Trust and Khan did the JSC. And between those guys, they had paid over $400,000 to young models between the years 2015 and 2019. So just in those 4 years, over $400,000 were paid to models. I mean, there was an email that was released where it was like a text stream. Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, he wants this girl, and they're like $1,000 a piece. They're literally saying it out loud. I mean, y'all remember the whole Pizzagate scandal? They're using code words. We want 6 slices of pepperoni. Some crazy ass shit. They don't need to do that. They're just out in the open. This guy wants 12 girls and he wants them for $1,000 a piece. Just out in the open. Ed Krasenstein also uncovered some other documents about forced marriages where some of these girls were immigrated into the country, being forced to marry people so they can stay in the country, so they can continue to be exploited. They were trying to do a little cover up. You know, they already had excuses made up like, oh, this one's a dentist and she came in and gave me some dental work and that's why I was paying her, $50,000 to do dental work for me. Or another one was, oh, this one is an interior designer. Some 16-year-old girl who is an interior designer that I paid 40 grand for. All of this was redacted, but easily uncovered by Krasenstein because all you had to do was just copy and paste it and put in a fucking Word document. Incompetency off the fucking charts. Okay, so we got to talk about this letter, this Epstein letter to Larry Nassar. Larry Nassar was that coach that abused a whole bunch of gymnasts, and he's rotting away in jail for doing some awful shit to some very young girls. And there's this letter, supposedly, that Epstein wrote from his jail cell to Larry Nassar. And the quote was something like, Trump shares our love of young nubile girls. But The handwriting did not match. It was mailed 3 days after he died, and it wasn't mailed from New York. It was mailed from Washington, D.C. I think it was in the Alexandria area. And there are some rumors going around that letter was written actually by Bill Barr. Like I said, this is just a rumor, but Bill Barr was literally in D.C. at the time. It was mailed from the neighborhood that he's in. It's almost like that this is some disinformation. So the people who are defending Trump goes, oh, well, if that's fake, then all of this is fake. But here's the thing. The letter was real. So who wrote it? And why was it written in the first place? If Epstein didn't write it, why was it written and who wrote it? What purpose does this serve other than throwing people off the scent? It does seem plausible. You and I are kindred spirits, and Donald Trump was too, and I'm about to kill myself. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why it was out there, just to give justification that Epstein killed himself when most of the country thinks that he was killed. There was this one thing that came out that Epstein's like, I don't know what happened to me, but I passed out, and when I woke up, I was in the infirmary with ligature marks around my neck, and I don't know what happened. That was when he was on quote unquote suicide watch. Also in this volume 8, there was this tip about this young girl. Her name was Dusty. She said that she was raped in the 1990s by Epstein and by Donald Trump. The tip was of the young girl killing herself over the incident, and it was also corroborated by this limo driver. And this limo driver was in Dallas, Texas at the time, where that girl was, and he said that he gave a ride to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is in the back on the phone talking to a guy named Jeffrey, and he kept talking about what they did to this young girl. And that limo driver also said that he gave that girl a ride. She told him about the incident, and he suggested that she go to the police. And since all this information came out, that unknown limo driver, he stepped forward and he says, hey, it's me. I'm the guy. And I did talk to this girl, and I did instruct her to go to the police. Obviously, nothing happened, and she ended up killing herself in 2000. And even the police at the scene of the crime said it did not look like suicide, but it was listed as a suicide later on. And the excuse was that she had done something with Mexican drug cocaine cartel. I mean, are they suggesting that this cocaine cartel is the one that killed her? It's all very hinky, but another one of those tips that is kind of corroborated. And not to mention Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, he also says that he believes that Trump had Jeffrey Epstein killed. Also, there was this story about Jeffrey Epstein saying that he was scared that something might happen to him while he was in jail. Go figure. And that happened to coincide with a time where he was in a jail cell on suicide watch with an ex-cop. His name was Tartaglione, who had also been in jail for murder. You know, he's kind of alluding to the fact that he thinks that that Tartaglione guy tried to kill him. So he was either drugged and then tried to strangle, but he didn't die because he woke up later in the infirmary. And that was the first time that he supposedly tried to commit suicide. The guards fell asleep. The cameras were off. The whole Pam Bondi of it all, saying that's the time where the camera resets because it's an old system from the 1990s that hasn't been updated yet, and it re-ups itself every night at midnight. But it wasn't around midnight, and it wasn't just 1 minute. It was like 3 minutes. Look, I was born at night, but not last night. You know what I'm saying? Stop treating us like fucking children. Oh yeah, and also just to add a little extra sprinkle of conspiracy on top of it, there's a report that says that they wanted to put Caesar Sayoc in the jail cell with Jeffrey Epstein. He is that psychopath that sent like dozens of pipe bombs to all of these Democratic leaders, like Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. He was trying to kill a shitload of Democrats because he was so in love with Donald Trump. And they wanted to put him in the cell with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, God, Tell me you're trying to kill this guy without trying to tell me you're trying to kill this guy. That one blows my mind, the whole Caesar Sayoc thing. And to go back to my point about them not being very secretive about this at all, there is literally a text message Prince Andrew sent to Ghislaine Maxwell. He didn't use code words at all. He's like, have you found new inappropriate girls for me? Just straight up out in the open. I mean, they did take his title away from him, Prince Andrew Mountbatten, fuck all. But he was up to his fucking eyeballs in this shit. So yeah, man, that guy shouldn't just lose his title. He should lose his freedom. That guy should be in jail. Moving on, we got some more files that were released. Larry Summers, he was one of Barack Obama's economic advisors. I think he was also George W. Bush's economic advisor. The guy has been hooked in to a lot of shady money dealings for a long ass time. He was set to be the executor of Epstein's estate. Thankfully, he didn't get that job, or we wouldn't be getting any of the files that the Epstein estate has been leaking. But so does that mean that Larry Summers is one of those 10 co-conspirators? Who knows? It's certainly a distinct possibility, because I've got more on him in here. If I didn't mention before, I've gone through so many things. Steve Bannon's phone had photos of Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell on a plane in 2021. All of this shit about him not being associated with them for decades, this is him 4 years ago in the same picture. That was literally the same year that she was in court over being a child trafficker. Oh, I wish her well. She's a great lady. I just wish her well. You have got to stop wishing well child predators, Donald Trump. You're telling on yourself, son. This whole thing just proves how amateur hour this is. Donald Trump cannot surround himself with anybody who is actually competent. That's the problem with fascism. Eventually, you run out of competent people, and all you have left are the sycophants, like Pam Bondi. I mean, they missed the December 19th deadline. They had lots of omissions. There's 500 plus pages that are just completely blacked out. They're redacting government officials' names. They had 16 files related to Donald Trump, which they accidentally released and then re-redacted. There's a report on Donald Trump having a fetish for pert nipples, where there's this young girl from the UK, and apparently she had been having sex with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein between the years 2006 and 2007, and was on the island. And she tells a tale about how Donald Trump played with her nipples for hours and they were super raw. She went to one of her friends who was also in the file, and she's like, oh my God, looking at her nipples, how they had been mangled by Donald Trump. He is a psychopath, man. All of these girls underage. Guys, it's too late. It's on the internet. It's out there. There's nothing you can do about it. Once it goes on the inner Googles, it's out there forever. It just keeps making me think, where are those fucking hard drives? I mean, I'm just speculating over here, but Donald Trump never says no to Israel. And he's still not been able to work out that whole Russia-Ukraine issue. So are they in Moscow? Are they in Tel Aviv? Are they in both? Jeffrey Epstein knows Putin. Jeffrey Epstein knew Ehud Barak. He also knew Netanyahu. Jeffrey Epstein was a Zionist. But still, it makes me think about Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the entirety of the FBI. There needs to be a culling at the FBI. I tend to think that a lot of this stuff is due to incompetence rather than being nefarious. I think that these people are trying to hide that information, but they suck at it. And there are too many intrepid reporters out there who are really digging into this. And most of America has gotten a peek through the looking glass, and they want to see more. Okay, so Hunter Biden has also been out there. He's been giving a lot of interviews. He's been on the podcast scene. He sat down with this guy named Sean Ryan. And Sean Ryan is kind of Joe Rogan adjacent. He is nobody's left-winger. He's not a sympathetic ear to the Bidens. And Hunter Biden sits down with him, and man, he just lays into Donald Trump. He starts talking about Donald Trump's teen modeling agency. He's like, man, These are 14 and 15-year-old girls. What are we talking about here? He also goes on, he goes, there are at least a couple of dozen credible sexual assault accusations of Donald Trump. And let's not forget, he was literally found liable for sexual assault against E. Jean Carroll. For what? Grabbing her by the pussy. That whole locker room talk from the Access Hollywood release that it's just locker room talk. Well, he literally did it to E. Jean Carroll. Hunter Biden goes on. He's like, come on, man. He's in the Epstein files. He's talking to a right winger. He's just being very matter of fact. He's like, man, he's in the Epstein files. Come on, man. He sounds just like his dad. Come on, Jack. He is protecting his billionaire donors. Hunter Biden is not wrong. The other day I had a conversation with a family member. I'm not going to say which one, but every time I even mention Joe Biden or Hunter Biden, this family member will immediately go, oh, Hunter Biden, he's the worst. He's terrible. Burisma and all this shit. He is not even a fucking drop in the bucket in comparison to Don Jr. or Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner got $2 billion from the Saudi government right after Donald Trump left office the first time. Left office, was forced out. Don Jr. and his dipshit ass brother, Eric, they're raking in so much crypto money and then illegally taking it out of their accounts, spending it on whatever the fuck they want to, or just giving it to themselves. There was an article that came out, it was like $600 million that Don Jr. just extrapolated from his account and just paid himself with it. Say what you want about Hunter Biden being corrupt and being a Nepo child. I will agree with you on that. But it is a drop in the fucking bucket in comparison to what Don's sons and his son-in-law are doing. $500,000 is nothing compared to $2 billion. And I'm not even mentioning Trump's corruption with the Live Golf tournament or the crypto scam or the meme coin scam. He has made billions of dollars off of being the president. He's scammed his people for billions of dollars. He is literally surrounded by billionaires who are bribing him as we speak with ballroom money, which, by the way, should be fucking illegal. That's the people's house. That's not his house. And he's letting him get away with murder, cutting all their regulations, letting them build all of these AI tech centers all over the country with absolutely no pushback whatsoever, and giving them government money to fucking do it. Meanwhile, our water bills are going up. Our electricity bills are going up. They are literally hanging out at the White House. You saw them all at the inauguration. All of the tech bro billionaire class. And he left his own fucking people out in the cold. Donald Trump is making bank as president right now. His kids are making bank because their dad is president right now. I have never seen more corruption in my life. Nobody has. It's never been this bad. And meanwhile, MAGA influencers got their head buried in the fucking sand. Nobody's saying jack or shit about this. It's infuriating. This whole thing is infuriating. Y'all remember a couple of weeks ago when that Vanity Fair article came out and Susie mentioned how Pam Bondi is screwing up the release of this Epstein file. It really seems like that they are all setting up Bondi to be the one to take the fall for this. It blows my mind how the right wing can point at everybody else in Trump's administration, but will not look up at the boss. He is the one who is directing them all to do it. When are you guys going to wake the fuck up? They are effectuating his commands. Like I said, if they go down because of this, I am happy. But at the same time, they aren't doing this on their own accord. It's all fucked up. There was another tip that came out, and this one kind of went viral for reasons you'll see, but there was a tip about a 14-year-old girl who says that she was impregnated by Donald Trump. She gave birth to this child, and then that child was disposed of in Lake Michigan. Her infant child, they threw her over the edge of a boat. Now, like I said, you got to take these tips with a grain of salt, and this sounds horrible. But there is some corroborating stuff surrounding this story. At that particular time, Donald Trump had this riverboat casino deal in Chicago, and he had been given permission since he had this riverboat deal to go further into Lake Michigan than most people are allowed to do. And that's supposedly where they disposed of that infant child. So it was right around that time where Trump was in town. I'm not saying this for sure happened, but Trump was there in Chicago during that time. So there's something to be said about it. Another one of those emails that was released was Epstein writing to Bannon, who said that I am the reason that Trump is losing sleep. Well, even in death, he seems to be losing sleep over Jeffrey Epstein, but we certainly seem to have a whole bunch of motives for Donald Trump to want to be rid of Jeffrey Epstein. There's this reporter, his name is Jason Leopold of Bloomberg News, and he did a little investigation on the FBI and their overtime pay. I mentioned earlier in the story that there was a deputy at the DOJ who got caught in a sting operation by Project Veritas, saying that he was scrubbing all of the FBI information. I can't remember the guy's name, is Schwartzman or something like that, Schwartz. And this guy, Jason Leopold, he does a little investigation and finds out that so many FBI agents had been called back to Washington, D.C. around that time in May of this year, and they were all getting buckets of overtime money because they were staying overnight many nights in a row, supposedly scrubbing out Donald Trump and Republican names out of the Epstein files. And obviously they missed a few, or if you believe the rumors, the FBI left some of that stuff in there. I mean, that picture of Donald Trump in the Donald Trump Epstein drawer with all the documents and the photos of Donald Trump. Maybe there is something to be said about some people inside the FBI who are intentionally leaking this stuff. If that's the case, I hope that's true. I mean, that means that not everybody in the FBI is crooked as a dog's hind leg. But according to Jason Leopold, there was a lot of overtime pay being paid to FBI agents around that time when that Schwartz guy said that they were redacting all of Donald Trump's and Republican names from the Epstein files. Pretty interesting little investigation. I've got some other notes here. There was that first email dump of the 22,000 emails that were released by the Democratic Oversight Committee. Out of the 22,000 emails, Donald Trump was mentioned more than anybody else, over 1,600 times. Nobody else even came close to that many mentions. I think Bill Clinton was mentioned in there like 350 times. I'm not saying that this makes Bill Clinton any better than Donald Trump. It's just that Donald Trump was in there more than anybody else. I mean, who are we kidding? These guys were thick as fucking thieves. Best buds. BFFs for life. Until he died. And then no more BFF. No more BFF. BFF only for life. And it only ends when one of us dies. Too bad it's gotta be you, Jeffrey. Ever since the birthday book came out, with that drawing from Donald Trump with the pubic hair being Donald Trump's signature, which is obviously Donald Trump's signature. I remember seeing Don Jr. going, my dad doesn't draw anything. It's like, dude, the internet. We've got dozens and dozens of pictures of Donald Trump's little doodles, and they're all signed Donald with the same little scrawl. Stop lying. Anyway, ever since that birthday book came out, it seems like Donald Trump has been going down, and more people on the right going, hey, something doesn't seem right. But of course, I'm only talking about Republican voters and Republican constituents. I'm not talking about the Republican podcasters out there because they're too busy sniping at each other. This is what happens when your leader is failing. When your leader is obviously going through dementia, he's getting those bi-monthly shots for whatever, and he's sucking. The economy sucks. He's starting wars all over the place. He's invading our country with military and with ICE. He did not end any of the wars. He just sent $40 billion to Argentina. Meanwhile, he's cutting healthcare and food stamps here in America. There is nothing that these podcasters can really talk about. They can't even bring up his fucking name anymore because it's all about Epstein right now. So they're busy sniping at each other, yelling and screaming about, I'm more fascist. No, I'm more fascist. It's insanity. It's just, all of this is just sheer insanity. I've got more. There's this group called the trumpfile.org, and they came across some other Epstein files, and they wrote an article about this report about a young girl who claimed that she was raped by Epstein, and then she threatened to call the police. And Maxwell, who was there, she kind of jumps in front of it and she's like, oh, I am completely appalled by what happened to you. I'm going to call the police. So she calls the police, or she calls somebody, and some guys show up in uniform and they arrest the girl, not Epstein. And here's the crazy part. There are literally pictures of a closet filled with police uniforms. So what this article is kind of saying is that they had this shit down to a science. Maxwell and Epstein already had a scenario in place where they would literally call the police and come and get the girl. There was another part of this report where that girl, or maybe it was a different girl, was driven out, where there's a bunch of alligators, and Epstein threatens the girl saying, if you say anything about me, that is where you're going to end up, in the alligator pit. This is the thing about sexual assault. It's not about the sex. It's about the power. And they are preying on girls from the wrong side of the tracks with no money and no power. And they're all underage and they have nowhere to go. Even if they went to the police, it seems like the FBI or the police, they would bury this shit. For God's sakes, Jeffrey Epstein got that sweetheart deal back in 2008. You get to go to prison at night and you get to walk around freely during the day and on the weekends. And we give you prison guards to follow you around, and they de facto become your own personal bodyguards. While he was literally serving that term, he is doing sexual assault. He is being protected on high by fucking the Prince of Darkness himself. There's also another article that came out recently from the New York Times. It's called Don's Best Friend, How Donald and Jeffrey Bonded Over Women. They should have said young women. But in this particular article that they wrote, there was a bunch of young girls that were at a party at Mar-a-Lago, and they were all given red or white wristbands to walk around half naked. Nobody else had these wristbands. It was just the girls. And the girls believe that those were the amount of money that they were being bought and sold for. I don't know which one was more expensive, the white or the red one. They don't really illustrate in the article what the pricing was, but it seems like that's what this was for, to let everybody else at the party know who was for sale and who was not for sale. Julie K. Brown, who was the Miami Herald reporter that kind of broke open the Epstein case when he got arrested the first time and he got that sweetheart deal. She came out recently really fucking pissed off. She says, does somebody at the Department of Justice know why my 2019 flight information is in the Epstein file? Who in the DOJ is investigating me? I am a reporter investigating the Epstein scandal. Why is the DOJ back in 2019 under Donald Trump's first term, why are they following me around? Why are they collecting information on me? That is a damn good question, Miss Julie K. Brown. Just a couple of days ago, Donald Trump put out a bleat on Truth Social. I don't know why he keeps doing this. Every time he does, it makes him look even more guilty than he did the day before. But he puts out this one tweet. He's like, 1 million more documents are found. The DOJ is forced to spend time on this Democratic hoax and not on the election fraud that I want them to be investigating. This is all a Democratic hoax. They just need to release all of their names and embarrass all of them, and we can move forward so we can start praising Donald Trump and all of the wonderful things that he's doing. Which is it, Don? Is it a hoax made up by the Democrats, or are there people out there who are going to be embarrassed? You can't have it both ways. Either there are people involved in this and they need to go down, or all of it's a Democratic hoax. Even in one fucking tweet, he's contradicting himself. It just makes him look exceptionally bad. Here's another one that just came up just a couple of days ago. Apparently, the billionaire tech bros that are all hanging out at the White House, sucking off the fucking government tit here, they are now really pissed off at Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is the Silicon Valley representative. I guess they were under the impression that Ro Khanna was their boy, but ever since he's been going down this path with Thomas Massie to release all these Epstein files, they are getting really pissed off at him. And surprisingly, they're less pissed off about the Epstein investigation and more pissed off that he floated the idea of doing a 1% wealth tax on billionaires. Honestly, it should be a hell of a lot more than 1%. But these mega billionaire types are pissed off about 1%. They are mad as hell, and they want to run somebody against him. I saw an interview that Ro Khanna did with Kyle Kulinski recently, where Kyle asked him, "Hey man, what's up? You running for president in 2028? And he didn't say no. He said he wanted to be more involved on a national level. And he went down the list of a lot of things that are pretty appealing to people like me, like holding all these people accountable, not just for the Epstein stuff, but for Donald Trump breaking international law by killing all these fishermen in the Caribbean, stealing oil tankers, starting wars all over the planet, bombing willy-nilly everywhere in any of these quote unquote shithole countries that he hates. Talks about taxing the billionaire class. He's talking about Medicare for all. He's talking about a lot of stuff that people like me, and I think a lot of Americans, are ready to hear. Maybe they weren't ready to hear Medicare for all back in 2016 when Bernie Sanders was talking about it. But now that they have cut Medicaid, Medicare, the ACA subsidies are gone, cutting food stamps, a lot more people are going, hey, I think it's time that we're done with this for-profit healthcare system. I think it's time for Medicare for all. And it's not just people on the left that are saying it. It's a lot of wine moms out there, centristy wine moms out there are going, you know what? Maybe Medicare for all is the answer. Maybe taxing the billionaires is the answer. And I'm saying, hell yeah to all of that. So if Ro Khanna runs for president, he certainly would get my vote over somebody like Gavin fucking Newsom, who does not want to tax the billionaire class, who does not want to give Medicare for all. Hell, they tried to do Medicare for all in California, and Gavin Newsom put the kibosh on that with a quickness. So Gavin Newsom, he is not it. I hope that Ro Khanna runs for president. He would definitely get my fucking vote. Now, as much credit as I want to give Thomas Massie, and I will give him credit, Ro Khanna has been carrying pretty much all of the water for this. He's been doing all of the news hits. Massie's been doing a few, but Ro Khanna has been out there. He's been the front man. He's the one that's taking all the hits. And in this interview, he kind of goes through how they started off with the discharge petition. And he also mentioned how him and Thomas Massie first got hooked up. They were trying to stop the funding of the genocide in Yemen done by Saudi Arabia back during Donald Trump's first term. Remember when Donald Trump was like, Jamal Khashoggi, oh, they chopped him up. What are you going to do, man? Saudi Arabia, they buy a lot of weapons from us, so, no need crying over spilled Khashoggi. They were trying to stop funding that genocide going on in Yemen, which, by the way, I think it's like over 300,000 dead Yemenis that Saudi Arabia perpetrated that we helped to fund. As much screaming as we are rightfully doing about Gaza, there was another genocide that Donald Trump helped to perpetrate in Yemen in his first term. He loves giving weapons to autocratic dictators. So when Massie and Ro Khanna got together about the Epstein thing, it was Ro Khanna was starting it off, and then Thomas Massie's like, hey, I see that you flipped somebody in a committee. I think I can help you out. I think I can get 4 or 5, maybe 6 Republican Congress members to sign on to this discharge petition. But you have got to get all 212 Democrats to sign on. So Thomas Massie does get the 4 or 5 Republicans, but Ro Khanna is left with the Herculean task of getting 212 Democrats in the House to sign on, which he does. Credit to both of them, but like I said, I'm giving a little bit more credit to Ro Khanna on this. Another thing that Khanna also mentioned, and I think that he's absolutely right, the DOJ should not be in charge of this release. This ridiculous piecemeal releasing of the files, and most of them are being redacted. All of these files should be released directly to Congress, and then let Congress, the democratic process, go through all these files and redact victims' names and the victims' pictures. Everybody else that's in this file, their name should absolutely be released. They seem to be caught off guard. They didn't take it seriously. They weren't prepared. You have 30 days to release these files. And then come 30 days, they're like, oh, you were serious about that? Oh, well, here's some redacted files. Is this going to satisfy you? And they're like, no, motherfucker. We want all of them. Not just some select files that you decided not to black out. And it's not just Trump administration. There are a lot of people in the Senate who would rather this not come out, including Democrats. There was an interview from, I believe he's senator from Virginia, Tim Kaine. He did an interview recently where he says, maybe it's a little bit too early to talk about impeachment of Pam Bondi. Dude, Khanna and Massie are getting it from both ends. They do not need Democratic senators to be obstacles of this shit. But it's the same old thing over and over again. It's like George Carlin said, it's a big party and you ain't in it. These guys still want to be able to have their little cocktail parties and have drinks with their Republican colleagues and pretend like everything is fine. They don't want to do any work. They just want to be part of this elite class and not rock the boat. I'm sorry, honey. The American boat has fucking capsized. We're all drowning out here trying to flip the boat back over. And people like Tim Kaine are like, well, I have a really comfortable spot sitting up here on the bow. Maybe an upside down boat can be very comfortable for all of us. Get the fuck out of here, Tim Kaine. Seriously. I remember when Donald Trump was running for president back in 2015, 2016. And one of the reasons, probably the main reason why he won, is because he was standing up there on that debate stage and he looked at every last one of these other Republicans and he says, every one of these guys are corrupt. They're crooked. They're all bought and paid for. I'm the only one who's not bought and paid for. Now, of course, he was absolutely lying his fucking ass off, but it was enough to get a lot of Republican people to go, you know what? He's right. They are all bought and paid for. They're all corrupt and we need to drain the fucking swamp. And Ro Khanna is like, why can't we just turn that around on Donald Trump? The Republican Party was more than willing to throw their own corrupt politicians under the bus or vote them out of office. But here on the Democratic side, we're like, we don't want to break the norms, let's just all be friends and let's just keep the status quo the way it is. Those days are over. People like Tim Kaine, people like Chuck Schumer, people like Hakeem Jeffries, all of these centristy, middle of the road guys who don't want to rock the boat, they need to get the fuck out. I am so goddamn sick of these sons of bitches. And most of America is in agreement with me on this. Okay, I got a little bit more here. And by the way, if you stuck with me to this part, you are quite the trooper. I know this is quite a long video, but this is where the stuff really gets juicy. I know we've been talking a lot about the Epstein files in relation to young girls and sexual assault, but this is where it reaches to a different level. And honestly, to me, this is much more pertinent information. Ryan Grimm, who's been doing a lot of reporting on Drop Site News. And if you're not subscribed to them, you really should be, because man, they do some real serious investigative reporting. So over on Drop Site News, they've released a lot of articles. I've covered a few of them. He kind of goes through the making of Jeffrey Epstein. He started his career as a math teacher at the Dalton School, which is like a prep school for the uber wealthy. And he was gotten the job by Donald Barr if that name sounds familiar, Donald Barr is the father of Bill Barr, Donald Trump's first attorney general. So that's why there's a rumor about Bill Barr being the guy who actually wrote that letter. But that's how he got his first gig, was Donald Barr got him the job as a math teacher at the Dalton School. He's not some math whiz or anything, but somehow or the other he got the gig. And here's a little side note. Donald Barr wrote a book, a fantasy fiction novel about some interplanetary wealthy elites who had a whole bunch of sex slaves. I mean, I'm not saying they're interrelated, but I mean, for God's sakes, they both seem to have the same thing on their mind, sex slaves. It's just really weird. But then he goes on to work for Bear Stearns, and then he met Stan Pottinger, who happened to be the deputy attorney general for Richard Nixon. When I say all of this stuff is incestuous, I really mean it. This shit has been going on for decades. That was back in the fucking 70s. So he got hooked up with Stan Pottinger, not to mention the fact that he also was tangentially connected to Robert Maxwell, who is Ghislaine Maxwell's father. And that guy notoriously was an Israeli spy, and he had an untimely death where he quote unquote fell off a boat and disappeared. But even Ryan Grimm is not 100% sure on whether or not he actually had the chance to meet Robert Maxwell. He met Ghislaine Maxwell after she left Europe to come live in America to escape the scandal that was her father, but her father was a spy. He's getting hooked up with, random attorneys general for Richard Nixon, and he happens to know Bill Barr's dad, and that was how he got his start. But he managed to work his way up to these elite circles, these Davos circles, if you will. This elite class of people that is way above everybody's pay grade. And we don't understand why he's been floating around in these circles. Epstein seemed to be able to play in this gray area. Look, you're talking about places like China and Russia. They are more totalitarian states. They're not democracies. So they don't have to kind of stand on ceremony about hiding any of this shit. They can just kind of do what they want to in broad daylight. But since America is nominally a democratic state, we have to hide a lot of this shit. But if you want to make deals, arms deals and mineral deals, or deals with warlords for guns or diamonds or huge amounts of money, you can't just go to like some white shoe law firm and figure out how to transfer billions of dollars. You need like nation states like the UAE or Saudi Arabia or the state of Russia to be able to move around that kind of money or that kind of wealth. And he was able to get in those circles. And Ehud Barak kind of started it off by introducing Epstein to the president of Mongolia. This is a long, long time ago. And Larry Summers was there. I swear to God, man, this guy is corrupt as the fucking day is long. But Larry Summers being there gave Epstein a sense of credibility. So by doing this smaller deal with the president of Mongolia, other countries started looking at Epstein as kind of a gray area type fixer. It's one of those, fake it till you make it kind of things. And all he really needed was an introduction from Ehud Barak. They're all working for Israeli interests, which kind of leads a lot of people to believe that he was either working for Mossad or Mossad maybe working for him. But then there was this other article that came out on DropSite, which has linked Jeffrey Epstein to the Iran-Contra affair. Now, if you guys are too young to remember the Iran-Contra affair, this all happened at the end of Carter's term in the late 70s on through the 80s under Ronald Reagan. What it was after the big overthrow of the Iranian government by the Ayatollah and all of those hostages that were taken at the Iranian embassy, there were no more deals to be had, no more government deals to be had with Iran and America. But still they wanted to sell them weapons. So how did they do it? The United States gave weapons to Israel, and then Israel funneled those weapons into Iran, took money from it, and then there was a big old pile of cash in which Israel got a taste, the United States got a taste, taste, and the CIA got a big taste. That big pile of money was used for a lot of things, including funding the Contras. And the Contras were the group that Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party wanted to fund so they could defeat the Sandinistan army. But they couldn't directly give money to the Contras, so they had to get it out of this pot of money from weapons sales to Iran, mediated by Israel. And then, of course, there's another scandal in there that most people don't know about, but some of that money was also used for Angolan rebels, which we weren't supposed to be funding either, but the CIA was funneling money to them as well. And all of this was under the nose of President Jimmy Carter, who didn't know about this because he was up to his eyeballs having to deal with the hostage negotiation of those 440 some hostages that were taken at the embassy. So all of this gray area shit was being facilitated by Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein. He was kind of the point man. He was the liaison, if you will, in between all of those weapons deals and all of that money. I mean, where do you think Jeffrey Epstein got all of his money from? There's a lot of different rumors about it, whether he got it from Les Wexner, the Victoria's Secrets billionaire. That is partly true. That's some of the money. But I guarantee you he was getting money from these weapons deals, skimming a little bit off the top. Oh, here's another little one from one of those drop side articles. Epstein was also a known associate of Adnan Khashoggi. If you recognize that name, the reporter that got chopped up by Mohammed bin Salman, Adnan Khashoggi was his uncle, and he was also a huge arms dealer. By the way, just a little side note, Donald Trump's big yacht back in the 80s was called the Little Princess. He bought that yacht off of Adnan Khashoggi. So Donald Trump knew that arms dealer, bought his yacht from him, and just even more tangential side note, that boat was featured in Never Say Never Again, the James Bond movie. The bad guy had this big yacht. That was literally Donald Trump's yacht. But Epstein was also an associate with him as well. And Khashoggi was also a central banker that was helping to fund the money transfers in the Iran-Contra deal. Epstein was also a friend of this guy named Douglas Leese, who was a British arms dealer. And this was broken in the New York Times. That's been known for quite a while. Epstein certainly knew a lot of billionaire types, but he also knew a lot of arms dealers too. Now on to Les Wexner, who was the CEO of Victoria's Secrets and the Limited brand and all that shit. By the way, a lot of young models involved in that. I'm sure that Jeffrey Epstein probably had access to those girls too. Just putting it out there. Les Wexner was under investigation by the Ohio Attorney General. Another lawyer was assassinated, and the Attorney General of Ohio was looking into Les Wexner about it. And about a month later, he hires Jeffrey Epstein while this whole investigation is going on. Of course, Les Wexner never got in any trouble over this. I don't know if Jeffrey Epstein helped to facilitate that, but Jeffrey Epstein, during the Iran-Contra affair, he'd been using a lot of CIA private jets to fly around all over the world. And now all of a sudden, he is using those same CIA private jets going back and forth to China, where all of the Victoria's Secrets and the limited clothing is being made. Somehow or the other, he is helping Les Wexner facilitate his operations in China. And he is using the CIA's jets to get there and back. I mean, what is all this shit? Here's the thing that ties all this shit together. Les Wexner, another guy named Leon Black, and Larry Ellison. Y'all know Larry Ellison. He's the one that's trying to buy up all of the media. Les Wexner and this guy Leon Black are huge donors to Israel. They're huge Zionists. So is Jeffrey Epstein. And along with the CIA and ex-CIA operatives, were helping facilitate monies from Wexner and Leon Black out of the country into Israel. And Epstein was helping to facilitate that, acting as the point man liaison guy, making sure that that money got from the American billionaires over to the IDF. And I mentioned Larry Ellison only because he's another one of those huge big donor types. I'm not saying that he was affiliated with them back then, but that guy is an old fuck and he's been around for a hell of a long time. And he's got his own little Israeli fund. It's called the Friends of the IDF. And along with a whole bunch of White House political appointees, they have been helping to facilitate the Ellisons fund the genocide, for their Zionist principles. Oh, also, and I didn't know this, but this is pretty fascinating. Afghanistan back in the 80s was invaded by Russia, and we were not able to directly fund the Mujahideen, which, by the way, ended up becoming Al-Qaeda. There are pictures of them in the fucking Oval Office with Ronald Reagan. We couldn't directly fund the Mujahideen so they could fight against the Russian invasion, but we wanted to make sure that they got weapons. So some of that Iran-Contra money, we are selling weapons to Iran through Israel, taking that money, funding the Contras, funding some rebels in Angola, and funding the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to the tune of billions of dollars. And by the way, if you think that Israel is done bombing Iran right now, I'm going to leave that shit out. I just think it's crazy that all of these freedom fighters are out there, and they're all happen to be fucking terrorists now, but we were helping to fund them through selling weapons to Iran, who was our mortal enemy. Now, Netanyahu, he is out there saying, well, I had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. That was all Ehud Barak. And Ehud Barak, even though we worked together, he was my mortal enemy in the Knesset. But at the same time, they all knew Jeffrey Epstein. And Ryan Grimm is talking about, in the next couple of days, they're going to release another article on DropSite where there is a connection between Epstein and Netanyahu, where Epstein helped broker a deal between the bank, JP Morgan, and Netanyahu for a gas pipeline. So be on the lookout for that article that should be dropping in the next couple of days. All of this is just leading me to ask the question, who was Epstein working for? Was he a freelance guy? He was obviously some kind of international operator, but was he working for the CIA? Was he working for Mossad? Was he working for Putin? Was he working for the Israeli government? It seems like he was kind of working for everybody and no one at the same time. There are some emails that got released where you would think that Ehud Barak would have, a higher level than Jeffrey Epstein. But Epstein is laying into him in this article, telling him what to do, telling Leon Black what to do, telling these billionaire types to shut the fuck up and listen to him like he was the boss. And maybe he was. Maybe he was just so hooked in with the billionaire elite class that they deferred to him after a while. It reminds me of the book Catch-22. I don't know if you guys have ever read it, but there's a side story in the book about this guy named Milo, who is like this weird libertarian guy who just likes to trade things for things with other people. And this all takes place on an American airbase in Italy during World War II. And the character Milo, who starts off the story, a tangential side character, doing all these trades between the military, with the local governments, with foreign governments. Eventually, by the end of the book, that character Milo is dropping bombs on his own American airbase because he's working out a deal with the German government. The deal is the German government will buy his products if he bombs his own airbase. And that character Milo facilitates that. And by the end of the book, generals are taking orders from him. Government officials are taking orders from him. He's brokering deals to bomb his own fucking airbase. So somebody who started off as nobody is all of a sudden running the show. When I'm reading about this Epstein stuff, it reminds me of that book, Catch-22. If you've ever read the book, maybe you get what I'm saying, but it blows my mind. There's another article from DropSite that talks about this Russian oligarch named Viktor Vekselberg, and he was introduced to Ehud Barak by Jeffrey Epstein. See what I mean by the dynamics now being flipped? Barak had introduced Epstein to the president of Mongolia all those years ago. And now the power dynamic is flipped, and now Epstein is doing all the introductions. When Ehud Barak was out of his job as Minister of Defense in Israel, now he needs some money, and here's Epstein helping him get a $2 million deal with this Russian oligarch called Vexelberg. Epstein was tight with Clinton. He's tight with Trump. He's tight with Putin. He's tight with Netanyahu. He's tight with Ehud Barak. He's tight with warlords and arms dealers. This guy was plugged into fucking everything. The young girls, to me, kind of come off as like either blackmail material or like a little honeypot thing or like a little side project for him. His real project was brokering deals from world leaders and arms dealers and drug dealers and huge banks, helping to launder all this money. A few months ago, there was a senator, I can't remember his name, it escapes me at the moment, but he was on the floor of the Senate railing against JP Morgan for laundering $4 billion worth of Epstein's money. Who knows what that money was for? Was it for young girls? $4 billion. Was it for arms deals? Was this skimmed off the top of Wexner, or was this something more international? I don't know. All of this stuff is just absolutely crazy. And this is all out in public. Meanwhile, the people in power are either trying to bury this or ignore it. Yeah, Tim Kaine, let's not go into this. It's a little too early to say it. Honey, I think it's a little 2000 and late. Let me tell you, buddy. Jesus Christ. There was this little piece about an email. Putin wanted to have a short meeting at a conference with Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein told him, no, I don't want to have just a little short meeting at a little conference. I need to be with you at the Kremlin. Jeffrey Epstein is telling the dictator of Russia, I'm going to tell you how this meeting is going to take place. It's going to take place with you at the Kremlin, and we're going to get into it. It's just mind-boggling how much power he seemingly had. I mean, the island, I'm not saying it's incidental, but the island is just like a perk. You know, it's just a flex to show all the billionaire elites out there that I am trustworthy, I am good at keeping secrets, and I'm somebody that you can trust with your war money or your weapons money or your drug money or whatever pharmaceutical yada yada that you want to launder through the Virgin Islands. That's why I have this island, to help put these billionaires at ease and allow them to have a safe space. Not just to come and have sex with underage girls, but to hang out with other wealthy billionaire elites and trade ideas and do deals that you cannot do in America. You need to be offshore to do it. And Epstein was helping to facilitate this shit. Look, the American people have lost faith in our institutions. And this is the reason why. It's this kind of shit, whether it's the Gulf of Tonkin lie that they told us to get us into Vietnam, or the Iran-Contra affair lies, or the lies that they told us to get us into the Iraq war. And then, of course, none of the bankers that wrecked our economy in 2008, none of those guys went to jail. Barack Obama comes into office and says, we're going to look forward. We're not looking back. Nobody was prosecuted for war crimes. Dick Cheney, Rumsfeld, or George W. Bush. Nobody got any punishment. You know, Barack Obama's like, yeah, it looks like we tortured some folks, but we're looking forward. We're not looking back. So it's understandable that the American people have lost faith in American institutions because American institutions have been lying to them. This Jeffrey Epstein thing has been going on for 3-4 decades. All of this shit was going under the radar. Nobody was talking about it. And none of these high elite types ever got in any trouble, including all of the elites that seemingly raped all of these young girls on Pedo Island for the last 30 years. The Davos crew, the Coconut Grove types, the billionaire elites, the ones that we can barely even whisper their fucking names. They are doing everything they can to keep that little perfect bubble surrounding them unpierced. There's been a couple of times where this Epstein thing has come up and then been pressed back down. Over the last decade plus, I've seen it a number of times where Epstein starts to come up and then it gets shoved down. And then, another story comes out and then it gets pushed away and says, oh, that's conspiracy theory. Let's stop paying attention to it. Now the dam is starting to break. But do not underestimate the elite types out there. Personally, I don't even think that they care anymore. I think that they feel like they can do whatever the fuck they want out in public, and they're not going to have any comeuppance about it because Donald Trump is in office and he's letting them get away with whatever the fuck they want. They're hanging out at the White House. They're getting all of their sweetheart deals. Donald Trump is an elite, and he has always catered to the elites. He took $270 million from Elon Musk, and then he let Elon Musk run roughshod with Doge all throughout our government for months. And Miriam Adelson and Sheldon Adelson has given Donald Trump over $300 million. And all they wanted in return was to annex the West Bank and to continue their genocide in Gaza unabated. And Donald Trump is letting them do that. Is it the money or do they have dirt on him? Donald Trump never, ever says no to whatever Israel wants. They are our client state. But with Donald Trump, it seems like we are their client state. We fund whatever they want to do. We need to tax these billionaires into fucking oblivion. Personally, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't think that there should be a billionaire. A billionaire is a policy failure. You make your $1 billion, you won capitalism. You're done. Move to the mountaintop with John Galt and leave us the fuck alone. But they don't want just the Billy. They want all the Billies. They have been extracting wealth from us for the last 50 plus years. They've taken 70 to 80 trillion dollars out of our pockets. We need to tax them back into fucking poverty. Every last one of them. Oh, Rantoinette is speaking against capitalism. She sounds like a socialist. You goddamn right I am. We've been doing this top-down, bell curve, trickle-down economic model for the last 45 years. And every last one of us are poorer and have a weaker position in our lives due to it. We need Medicare for all. We need childcare. We need to end these fucking wars. We need free college, free trade schools. We need to call out the genocide in Gaza and fucking end it. We need to stop funding these dictators and warlords. We need a working class agenda. We need strong progressives to lead the way. We need to be done with this model. It has royally screwed over the American people. Of course, we're still at each other's throats, pointing fingers. No, it's the trans people. No, it's the immigrants. That's the reason why your life sucks. No, it is the billionaire class that have been robbing you blind. They bought off our politicians. They get laws passed for them. We get the fucking shaft. As far as I'm concerned, every last one of them needs to be taxed or prosecuted for robbing us for the last 50 plus years. If it was just capitalism, free trade, allowing the invisible hand of the market to run things, that would be an argument. But we're not living through that. This is not free trade. These people are in the know. They know politicians. Politicians write laws for them. They take that inside information and they make speculative wagers through the stock market, and they make copious amounts of cash with that information. Corporations don't spring up out of the ground like a fucking potato. They have to get permission from the American government to start up in the first place. And then you're looking at all of these billionaire types and they are getting huge amounts of government subsidies, whether it be the tech bros, whether it be the military industrial complex with Raytheon and Honeywell and General Dynamics. They're making trillions of dollars off of the war machine. And the Pentagon just failed its 8th audit in a row. 60% of the money that they have gotten, trillions of dollars, is unaccountable. And here's Donald Trump talking about we need to raise the military budget up to and past $1 trillion every year. But we can't afford healthcare. We can't afford education. We can't afford any social safety net for anybody. If you're poor, if you're working class, go fuck yourself. We don't have money for you. I have money for my billionaire donors. So they stay billionaires, they stay powerful, and they continue to give me donations so I get to stay in power as a politician. That is what we've been living through for so many fucking decades. And we should all be sick of this shit. Jeffrey Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg. He is our way of looking through that looking glass into the other side where the elite and the powerful run us all into the ground. Anyway, I have been talking about this for way too long. My voice is dying. I'm running out of fucking air and I am starving to death. So I'm going to get out of here. If you made it through all of this, you are a trooper. Thank you so much. And if you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. I work hard on this stuff, gathering all this information. It does take a little bit of effort, and a like or a sub would be greatly appreciated. I will sing you praises and I will dance at your wedding. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Happy holidays to all of you. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy all of the things. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will catch you next time. You take care. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. Keep rocking.